Okay, Bruchim Abayim. We're continuing on Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, Siman Kufnun Aleph in the Halachot of Kedushat Bet Knesset, and we are still in the middle of Seif Aleph. I want to just take a moment to mention one part of the Berura Halacha here. It says one of the first things that Maran writes that's asur to do in Bet Knesset is kalut rosh, lightheadedness, joking around in a way that is not befitting the reverence of the Bet Knesset. And says the Berura Halacha, mikol makom af shenevdu averot kedolot bebet Knesset, even if people have done averot in Bet Knesset, mikol makom mutar leitpalel velatet sham sefer Torah. Still, you could give a sefer Torah there. You could daven in that shul, as Re'em writes in his Shuvot in Siman Pe Aleph. But the Ben Ish Chai writes in Ben Yoyada in Masechet Ta'anit Daf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, and speaking about the kavod of Bet Knesset, says you have to understand that the Chumrah of doing Avera in Bet Knesset is way, way more than doing the same Avera outside Bet Knesset. You're in Paltin Shel Melech, you're in the palace of the king, in front of the Shekhinah, so to speak. Doing something is more severe. The severity of it is more than a regular place when a person does Avera. So you say Lashon Hara in Bet Knesset, right? Or Dvarim Betelim, which is asur even outside, but doing it in Bet Knesset, of course, that would be more of a severe avera. Also, and we learned the Mishnah Berura that about the Mikdash, it says in Pasuk in Vayikra, Umikdashi tirau, you shall revere my sanctuary, my Mikdash, she'em mora'o shel hashochen ba'alav, that the reverence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu resides in the Bet Knesset should be on a person. And we learned that the Samak, the Sefer Mitzvot Katan, in Mitzvah Yud Aleph, writes that because of the Avon of Kalut Rosh in Bet Knesset, when people do not respect the Batei Knesset, Ubatei Midrash, because of this avon midah keneged midah, chas v'shalom, it will turn into a bet avodah zarah. It will be destroyed, the bet knesset. So, not a good thing, of course. And the mitzvah of morah hamikdash, this reverence of the bet knesset and bet mikdash, the Kaf HaChaim says that there are many poskim who hold that this is a mitzvah d'oraita. Mikdashi tirau. It's a mitzvah d'oraita, and because the pasuk in Yechezkel says, right, va'ahi lahem lemikdash me'at, this is also midivrei Kabbalah attached to the mitzvah d'oraita of mikdashi tirau, and therefore it's d'oraita. There are, of course, others who disagree, and they say this is a d'Rabbanan, important d'Rabbanan, but nevertheless d'Rabbanan. And the Ben Ish Chai actually says that this is the Oraita. He paskins like those who are Machmir, that the Morah HaMikdash applies fully to Bet Knesset and Bet Midrash as well. This is a piece that Ben Ish Chai writes in Rav Pa'alim in his Teshuvot in Chelek Bet Siman Chaf. So part of this, well, I should say, once I say this, I should say Chacham Ovadia does not necessarily agree with that. Chacham Ovadia sides with the majority, what he feels is the majority of the poskim, that this is the Rabbanan, very important the Rabbanan, but again, the Rabbanan nevertheless. But part of the Morah Bet Knesset, Rabbi Eliezer Papo writes, this is the in famous Sefer Pelei Yoetz, one of the must-read Sfarim, a tremendous and very, very profound work in Musar. He was a known posek and tzaddik in Turkey. He wrote many sfarim of halacha that people may not know. First of all, he has She'elot U'Tshuvot Pelei Yoetz, right? But he also has Orot Elim and Shas. He has Chesed La'alafim and Orach Chaim and Yoredah. So he's not just a person that wrote a Sefer Musar, but the Pelei Yoetz writes that a person should not speak with loud voice in Bet Knesset. It's not kavod. It's not derech eretz to yell and to scream in the Bet Knesset. Even if someone is doing something wrong and you have to bring it up to their attention, there's a way to say it. You don't have to yell and scream, not because they don't deserve to be yelled at, but because you don't yell in the Bet HaMidrash. You don't speak loud in a disrespectful way in the Bet Knesset. So therefore you should go to them and bring it up b'lachash, with kavod. You bring it up to them in a respectful way that is befitting the place that you're in. And a person that has proper kavod for Bet Knesset, the Ben Ish Chai writes that he will merit that the Kedusha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu would rest upon him. It's a tremendous thing. The Kedusha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when you have the reverence and the kavod properly for the Bet Knesset and Bet Midrash, HaKadosh Baruch Hu also gets closer and sanctifies that person with resting his Shekhinah upon them. That's what the Ben Ish Chai writes. Now, we learned the Samag that the avon of this second Bet Midrash and Bet Knesset is tremendous, right? Now, there are those who bring in the name of Zohar HaKadosh that a person that does lightheadedness, he doesn't have proper respect for the Bet Knesset, because of it, the galut is elongated and people stay in galut because of that, more than it was originally nigzar. So you're talking about like a gezerah of galut that has been there, and then you could extend that gezerah to a longer time just because you're not respecting HaKadosh Baruch Hu's place. That's something to be careful about. Once you know Zohar HaKadosh says this, that's something to be very much mindful. So it says the Mishnah Berura, Sicha betela. This is on Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch said you cannot speak idle talk in Bet Knesset, in Bet Midrash, and just talk schmoozing about business, about things that are not politics. What did the president say? What happened with Israel? You cannot do that in the Bet Knesset. If it's not sorech mitzvah, even though that is something very important to us, whatever is happening in the world or in the country, that's considered sicha betela. And that is not mutar in Bet Knesset. Now, even sichat chulin, says the Chafetz Chaim, sichat chulin and sicha betela are different. Sichat chulin is things that are a necessity of my business, my life, where I'm going, doing business, whatever it is. Those that are not completely idle talk, but it is important non-Torah related talks. Even that, says the Chafetz Chaim, Sichat Chulin, Shelesorech Parnasah, that's for need of your Parnasah. Where do I buy this? How do I sell on Amazon? Whatever it is. Who is your broker? The things that are very much important, and it's not like unnecessary talk, but it's like business related talks, right? Who do you use for washing your cars for Pesach, right? Of course. That's you have to know that it's important, but at the same time you cannot talk about it in Bet Knesset. So says the Mishnah Berura, the bechutz shari, outside is mutar to do that. Sicha betela, even outside is questionable, but over here, even though that is letzorech bebet Knesset asur, in Bet Knesset you cannot do it. Now, how about reading newspapers in Bet Knesset? And this becomes a little sticky because you have a lot of journals that could be also not necessarily goyish, not necessarily a Gentile source, but it's like, they may have like a little column of Devar Torah, but it's about the world basically, right? So that is a mutar to read that in the Bet Knesset? Absolutely not. It's not mutar, right? Chacham writes this, even with all the leniencies that you could find, still, in Halichot Olam, in Parashat Vayikra, he says that's asur. You cannot read newspapers or things that divrei chol, novels and stuff like that. In the Bet Knesset, you cannot do that. And of course, the Kaf Chaim says something like that as well over here, right on our Sif. Now, the Kaf Chaim also writes that a person that speaks Sichat Chulin again means things that are needed for business, for life. In Bet Knesset, it would be better for him to stay home and daven biyachid than coming in the shul, because what you're gaining by davening betzibur and what you're losing by speaking Sichat Chulin Bet Knesset, which is asur, it's not comparable. You're doing an avera, it's a mitzvah avera. You're trying to do a mitzvah of davening betzibur in the Bet Knesset, but it's coming with an avera. So if you really, really can't control yourself, I would just say control yourself. It's like any other muscle that you could develop. There's also a muscle that you could develop. It takes maybe time. Maybe you have to hold one of those cards that some of the shuls you've seen. They have like a placeholder siddur card that it says on it, I'm involved with davening, whatever it is, I can't speak. Something like that. And you put it like in front of you in the thing. It may have to be hard a little bit for a day or two or three, but then once people know this person you cannot talk to in Bet Knesset, it will be easy from then and on. So it says the Mishna Berura, says the Mishna Berura, Ubifrat sicha betela, not only we said sicha betela is worse than sichat chulin. He's in kol sheken that you're talking idle talk that has no tzorech for your parnasa. Then of course it will be completely asur. It always is better not to speak devarim betelim. Zohar HaKadosh in Parashat Vayakel Chelek Bet Daf Resh He Amud Bet says tremendous things about the avon of speaking sicha betela in Bet Knesset. וכל שכן שיש לזהר בבית כנסת ובבית מדרש, מעוון הדיבורים האסורים ככל לשון הרע ורכילות. Of course, when things that are asur, that you should never be saying, but as we said before, from the Ben Ish Chai, Ben Yoyada, it's going to be a bigger avera in Bet Knesset. So lashon hara, rechilut, gossip, and negative talk, machloket, ktata, fighting, and division. All those things, of course, are going to be a worse avera in Bet Knesset than anywhere else. Aside from the fact that they are heavy sins, even outside, it becomes a bigger avon in Makom Kadosh of Bet Knesset, Bet Midrash, because you're disgracing the kavod of Shekhinah, of Hashem. And of course, it's not the same when you sin in your confinement of your house versus doing it in the palace of the king, going against him right in front of his eyes. But it's not only that, but you're also putting a stumbling block in front of other people. When you talk and they get involved and so on, then it's not just you, but you are pulling other people inside of it as well. It's like breaching a dam a little bit in the beginning, but then before you know it, it has already breached tremendous amounts and destroys the whole kavod, the whole culture of respecting Bet Knesset and Bet Midrash. Again, imagine if you take a look at Bet Knesset that nobody tolerates speaking. Even an outsider that comes there, after 2-3 minutes, he'll get the point and he'll keep quiet for the rest. And even if you have a person that's very respectful to the shul, goes to Bet Knesset, that everybody is talking, right? At some point, it's going to be very difficult not to stand out. And this is machshil et harabim. Again, this has sometimes comes to fighting in the middle of the shul, and we know how this happens. People from one thing to another, and you see there's a machloket brewing somewhere in the shul, and becomes very difficult to hold back in that way. So that's something extremely important, says the Mishna Berura, to be mindful, not to speak, not to allow any speech of divrei chol, or certainly divarim betelim in the Bet Knesset, in the Bet Midrash. Now, if it helps, the Zohar that he brings in Pashat Vayakel over here, the Zohar says that if a person speaks on Shabbat in Bet Knesset, divrei chol, right? It's not even dvarim betelim. Divrei chol, things that are needed for parnasah, things that are important, but not Torah, not tefillah. So if you do that on Shabbat in Bet Knesset, you're mechaler Shabbat, says the Zohar. the language of the Zohar. And he doesn't have a chelek in Elokei Yisrael. He has no portion in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem has nothing to do with you. It's like a very severe language of the Zohar. There's no chelek by Am Yisrael. It's something like that. He has no portion of Am Yisrael, this person, right? And it says the Zohar goes on and on this. It says the two malachim, they put their hands on his head and they say, woe is to this person, Peloni, that he has no chelek in Am Yisrael. He has no portion in HaKadosh Baruch Hu and in Am Yisrael. And the Ben Ish Chai brings this, the Kaf Chaim brings this, the Zohar HaKadosh, and they bring an additional ma'amar of the Zohar as well, that even during the week, it's not just limited to Shabbat and Bet Knesset, but even during the week, when a person is speaking divrei chol Bet Knesset, en lo cherek be'elokei Yisrael, same thing. Now Shabbat is worse, because Shabbat, again, the Kedushat Shabbat, like the Ben Ish Chai brings from the Mekubalim, you learn on Shabbat, you do a mitzvah 1,000 times, 1,000 folds. So you learn 1 hour is like almost 38, 40 days of consecutive hours of learning. Tremendous, right? But with that comes also a challenge, a responsibility to be careful not to do averot, because anything is magnified on Shabbat. It's a higher level of Kedusha, but nevertheless, he brings a Zohar that even during the weekdays, speaking divrei chol in Bet Knesset results the same severity of languages beyond thought that the Zohar HaKadosh mentions. Now, how about entering a cell phone in a Bet Knesset? Right? So of course, that's a very sensible thing not to do that, right? It's a distraction. You want to come here, disconnect from the world in order to be able to connect and reconnect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it's very sensible to say, don't bring your cell phones in the Bet Knesset. Many shuls, Baruch Hashem, an increasing amount of shuls, they have now charging stations that they lock. There's lockers for phone that you lock them there, and hopefully you forget them when you leave the shul. And you have the distractions left outside, and not bringing it. But at the same time, even the time of before smartphones, just a regular cell phone, when like 25 whatever plus years ago, the cell phones became a thing. Rav Mashash at the time wrote, Rashal Mashash, that it's asur to bring the cell phones in the Bet Knesset. Imagine, that's when once a day you would get a call, the minority of people had cell phones. They talk about like a Nokia, heavy, big cell phones, if anyone remembers that, those times. But, Rav Shamash says asur to bring it, as asur to bring it in the Bet Knesset, because it's distraction. Now imagine that you have on it your email and your social media of all sorts of Dvarim Kedoshim, of Marot Tum'ah and Negaim that you have of Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and WhatsApp and videos and text messaging. And Hashem Yirahem. How can a person daven when he has all of these? This is zilzul in the Makom Kadosh. And Rabbi Shash says it's not just for distraction. You're disgracing the Makom. You're disgracing the Kedusha of Bet Knesset. How dare you bring your cell phone into Mikdash? that when you go to a mikdash, to Har Bayit, it's asur to bring your wallet, the kis shel kesef. You can't bring it. It's not b'kavod. For Har Bayit, forget about Beit HaMikdash. You don't come with your thing. And bringing this, the Berura says Rabbi Shash is really disrespectful. It's not proper for the decorum of a makom kadosh like Beit Knesset, like a Beit Midrash. Now, if a person is cleaning the Beit Knesset, Beit Midrash, so the gabbai, or the shamash of the Beit Knesset, and he wants to listen Shirei Kodesh, he wants to listen to Jewish music, right? That also says mutar, because that's not considered zilzul. You're listening to Shirei Kodesh as you prepare the Beit Knesset, as you. That's fine, as long as the content is a proper content. It will be considered a proper thing to do, and that basically concludes our shiur today. B'ezras Hashem will continue this in